Hi, welcome to Focal Point, AFR Talk. I am Brian Fisher, your congenial, convivial, and amiable host. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. Now, I want to take just a couple minutes at the beginning of the monologue today to talk about what the GOP is facing, because the GOP, I believe, is in a civil war. I think when people use that term, it is not an exaggeration. Now, what I want to suggest to you is the future of the GOP is at stake right now. Whether the Republican Party continues to be a viable political entity in the United States is going to be determined by how this civil war shakes out. And I would suggest that whether America has a future is going to be determined by how this civil war shakes out. Now, what I want to suggest is that if the Republican Party does not get its mind right on these three issues, then it will wind up in the ash heap of history. It will be entombed with the fond memories of Ronald Reagan. Now, those three things are immigration, the debt ceiling, and marriage. These are the three hills on which this civil war of values is being fought. By the way, the presidential election was decided on values issues. Don't misunderstand this. Some people think that it's only the Republican Party that makes an issue out of values. Well, there were values that the American people voted for on November 6th. The values they voted for was bigger government, more intrusive government, higher taxes, more welfare. Those are their values, and that's what they voted for. So the elections always turn on the issue of values. It's just a question of whose values are going to be enshrined, whose values are going to be articulated in the way that is the most effective. Now, what I want to suggest to you, if you want to use an analogy of a battlefield, you got three hills, and there's a flag on top of each one of those hills, and the two factions of the Republican Party, what I would consider the libertarians and the conservatives, are fighting for control of those three hills. And whoever captures the flag at the top of those three hills is going to determine what kind of party the Republican Party becomes. Now, the first issue is immigration. Now, you get all these calls from Krauthammer and Sean Hannity to cave on immigration. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Republican Party listens to Charles Krauthammer, if they listen to Sean Hannity, and they cave on immigration, they embrace amnesty, the Republican Party will be finished as a political force in America, because there will be no discernible difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, and genuine conservatives in the Republican Party who believe in the rule of law, believe in a secure border, believe that only people who have a legal right to be in the United States should be able to benefit from our welfare programs and be able to get meaningful employment here. They're going to desert the party. They're going to check out. They're going to be gone. They're going to be history. They might go to a third party. They may just disengage from the political process altogether. But regardless, they will be lost to the GOP forever. So this would be a suicidal move for the Republican Party to embrace amnesty. And we've talked about this before, but the really moronic thing about caving on immigration, embracing amnesty, is that it won't help them win Hispanic votes anyway. We've talked about this, but Heather McDonald has made it very clear that Hispanics vote Democrat because of welfare, not because of immigration. And the reality is the Republicans are never going to be able to out-pander Democrats, because the way Democrats get these votes is by promising to steal stuff from some people and give it to them. Now, Republicans can never embrace that idea. They're never going to be able to promise that they're going to steal more stuff than the Democrats are going to steal. They can never do that. Democrats are always going to be able to out-pander them. They're always going to be able to promise their groups that they want to appeal. They're always going to be able to promise to them that they're going to steal more from producers to give to them than the Republicans will. So it wouldn't even work if they embraced amnesty to begin with. Now, the compassion argument's often used here. Well, the Republicans are just hard-hearted and lacking in compassion. But the reality is that sound immigration policy is the essence of compassion. Sound immigration policy is the essence of compassion. For instance, compassion is a secure southern border. When you have a secure southern border, what are you keeping out of the United States? You are keeping drugs out. You're keeping drug cartels out. You're keeping criminals out. you're keeping violence out, and you're keeping Muslim terrorists out of the land. Now, that benefits everybody. Hispanic families, they don't want drug cartels and Muslim jihadists in their neighborhood any more than anybody else does. That is compassion for legal immigrant families. Now, also, if you look at the issue of employment, compassion is assuring legal immigrants that their jobs are not going to be taken by people who have no legal right even to be here. That's compassion. So I don't believe we have to choose between justice and compassion. Justice and compassion are two sides of the same coin. The way that government shows compassion is through justice, by making sure that everybody's right to life, liberty, and property are protected, making sure that everybody is equal under the law, that nobody gets a special break when it comes to the law, that nobody gets rewarded for breaking the law. And that's why people come here. And people have left their homelands and come to the United States because what they have experienced there in their native land is an absence of the rule of law. They've experienced the breakdown of society. They've experienced anarchy. They've experienced corruption in government that makes free enterprise and economic prosperity impossible. So if we have any compassion for legal immigrants, the ones who have come here to the United States to get away from social decay, to get away from injustice, to get away from corruption, to get away from the breakdown of society, then we want to make sure that America remains the stable, just, prosperous, and free culture that drew them here in the first place. What kind of compassion is it to legal immigrants to say we're going to let the United States of America turn into the country that you left, to turn into the country that you fled in order to find refuge in the United States? There's no compassion in that whatsoever. Now, the second issue is the debt ceiling. If the Republicans cave on the debt ceiling, Harry Reid's out there saying we're going to add another $2.4 trillion to the debt ceiling. And this is what the Republicans did 15 months ago. Remember, it was 15 months ago the Republicans added $2.4 trillion to the debt ceiling. The Republicans did that. They agreed to that. If they do that again, then once again there's going to be no discernible difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. And the faithful are going to leave en masse. Let's say why, you know what they're going to say is, why should I support the Republican Party? It doesn't defend my values. It doesn't even defend the values that are enshrined in its own platform. Why should I give this party my allegiance when they do not defend anything that represents a core value to me? And the third issue is same-sex marriage. You got people like Michael Barone and other conservative voices saying, look, you just got to let these social issues go. You got to get rid of them. They're just a drag. They're a weight. You're never going to win elections. But remember, we saw how faulty that was in the last election. In November 6th, marriage did better on the ballots in all 4 states than Mitt Romney did. It's not a losing proposition. And so if you've got the pro-family base, which makes up the heart and soul of the Republican Party, and they see that Republicans will not, they don't, or they can't, or they won't articulate a full-throated defense of natural marriage as the cornerstone of American society, then why would pro-family Americans in general, and why would evangelicals in particular support a party like that with their time, their money, or their votes? They just won't. So my point is, if the Republican Party is even going to have a political future in America, it's got to say no to amnesty, it's got to say no to an increase in the debt ceiling, and it's got to say an emphatic no to gay marriage. Now, if they don't have the cervical fortitude to stand for the rule of law, to stand for fiscal restraint, and to stand for man-woman marriage as the building block of all civilization, then what use are they to values-driven Americans? And I would say none. They're of no use to values-driven Americans that I can see. They're offering nothing to values-driven Americans that would win our allegiance. And yet you got panic-stricken Republicans like Charles Krauthammer, Sean Hannity. I mean, they're in full-fledged panic mode, and they're pushing for capitulation. This is less than a week after the results of the election. I haven't seen a rush to surrender like this since the day the French dropped to their knees before the Nazis in 1940. So what I suggest is it's time for the Republican Party leadership to start listening to its base and to its conscience and stop listening to the Washington Post and the mainstream media. Now, the bottom line here is either conservatives are going to take the wheel of the Republican Party bus from the likes of Karl Rove, or Karl Rove and his Republican elite buddies are going to drive this bus so deep into the ditch that you couldn't haul it out of there with a bulldozer and a titanium chain. So yes, the Republican Party is locked in a civil war. The three hills over which they are fighting are amnesty, the debt ceiling, and family values. Whoever captures the flag on those hills will determine the future of the Republican Party. And since the Republican Party is the only party even claiming to stand for and defend the values that made America great, whoever captures the flag on those three hills will determine whether or not America itself even has a future. And those are my thoughts on what's going on in the culture war today. Now, we are going to, at the quarter hour, we've got some special guests from Operation Christmas Child going to be with us in studio here in the next segment. But it's interesting to me that I talked with you about the secession petitions. There are 47 states now on the White House website. White House has a segment on their website called We the People. You can put a petition on there. Anybody can do it. You got students out there now. They're putting a petition on there saying, we want the government to bail us out. We want to turn our college diplomas in. They're worthless. They're worth nothing. We've got $28,000 apiece of debt. We want you to forgive us our debt. We'll turn back in our diplomas. We'll never breathe a word about the fact that we got a college education. We'll never breathe a word about where we went to college. We just want to get our money back, and you can have the diploma, the worthless diploma that we spent $140,000 getting. You can have it back. They got that petition up on the White House website. But 47 states now have petitions on the White House website asking the Obama administration for the privilege of seceding from the Union. Now, the one from the state of Texas is going gangbusters. I checked that about an hour ago, and there were already 75,434 signatures on the Texas petition to secede from the Union. And they've got the legal right to do it, by the way, looking at their Constitution. Most other states gave up that right. Rick Perry came out today and said he doesn't support it, even though he's the one that brought it up. Now, he does not support this petition to secede. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.